Good evening, everyone. Our friend, our producer, is out, so I am usually the pre-production guy, so I guess I'm in charge. I don't know. Corey is in Vegas getting drunk, slaying bodies with his family, and he and his wife are partying up. But I will say this. He is alive because we got an email from him, and he put up a new he put up a new thumbnail photo for the Line Out episode we had earlier today with Alain Hyardet and Thierry Dupont. So I don't have the music. I need to figure that out so that I can make sure it works, right?
Just imagine guitar solo.
Troy Kreitis, whenever you watch this drink is for you. I'm drinking a Yingling.
Or as they call it in Pennsylvania, just lager.
Can I get a lager?
Yeah.
But so going into the rundown. So we got the launch of the San Diego Legion. That was kind of ominous when it happened. Ontario Arrows have, they're officially out there now. They're moving ever forward as part of their project, and we're pretty sure they are an MLR team for 2019. Then we're hearing more things about Rugby Club New York, which we'll address in rumors. A big topic this week on the subreddit, which is reddit.com/r/MLRugby, was player compensation. And we had a really long discussion about that, and we're going to discuss it tonight on pod. But as we said, we don't have any merch to hand out, but I'm going to drink one for our 3 reviewers. Hey, Victor, you found the third one. Where did you find that? Because I only found the first 2.
Okay, so what happened was that I was looking at the... You mind that?
I just want to know.
I just went to our iTunes thing and I saw it there.
Oh, because I found the first. I found the first 2 when I looked through it this weekend when we were talking about finding reviews. So
we've also, for anyone listening, we've been saying a lot like, please review us and we'll talk about it. And we actually got reviews like a month ago or so, and we didn't even realize. So we kind of messed up there.
Yeah. So October 16th from CC 21696.
It's November 13. It's like a month ago, literally.
Yeah, it's a month ago. So in quotations marks, must listen and exclamation. Great rugby podcast about Major League Rugby. October 18th from Rugby Nation USA. That is Jason Graves. He runs a nice little blog that covers club rugby to the nth degree. So if you want to know about club rugby in the United States, he is your guy. He puts out, I think he's put out over almost 1,000 club rugby profiles, which is pretty awesome. And he's, filling his own little niche of the market. And, I always love reading his rugby profiles of clubs and people. Those are his best work. So must listen MLR podcast, bringing you the best news in the MLR as the Major League Rugby matures and begins play. I look forward to the podcast growing with it. If there is an MLR network, Earful of Dirt needs to be included. Hey, league office, we have an email. You know where to find us, right?
What's up?
Wouldn't mind being on CBS Sports. That'd be kind of a nice thing to do.
And then our latest one, November 10th. So that was Friday?
3 days ago?
Yeah, Friday. So that's probably why I didn't see it, because I think I looked on Thursday. From P_Reggie. So the guy who's been hitting us up in the Facebook DMs, I don't know where your stuff is, Pierce. So hit us back up. and we will read your review. But P. Reggie, you won't be sorry, he says, is the title of the review. For anyone who wants to be a fan of Major League Rugby, give these guys a listen. They do a great job of going in depth and explaining all things MLR related, and they are also very accessible if you have questions. Yes, you can find me at the Strobro on Twitter. You can find Victor at NYC Tours. Corey Munson is just his name, and Dan likes to be incognito, but I'm sure
I actually forget what my Twitter handle is, to be honest.
Mr. Dan DeBrown, guys. Mr. Dan DeBrown.
That's right.
Yeah, I forget it when I'm trying to write something to you. That's the problem.
But Dan.
There's a lot of Dan Browns, including an author, and you're not him.
Never heard that before.
All right, so let's get into the main stories of the evening.
Thank you for the reviews.
Yes, thank you for the reviews. We are supposed to have merch that we're trying to send out, but I guess we didn't get it. If we get enough, I don't know how much we're getting, but the first person, so CC, whatever your name is, drop us an email, Earful of Dirt, and say you're the first guy. We will send you a hat or something.
After we pick through the things that we like the most, obviously.
Yes. Hopefully they send koozies. So
be nice. You'll just see us with like a hat and a shirt and a scarf and sunglasses and everything. We're like, sorry, man, they just didn't send us anything. It's just nothing's in it. Sorry, man.
So, San Diego Legion. So we've been talking about the San Diego team almost as fast as the Minneapolis team went kaput. It was like a there and then it was a gone. But San Diego's real. They came in. We're pretty sure we found their LLC a few months ago. As we've said on the pod, they have an outside investor, possibly the Stormers, which leads into another story we're going to talk about this evening. We connected via Facebook Messenger, and I sent our official stuff over to them via their email, so we should be hearing back this week. And, they came in on the backsplash of the heels of the CBS announcement, so that was kind of ominous when that happened.
Yeah,
what do you guys think?
That was actually kind of surprising. I didn't expect to see that with the CBS deal because we all heard that something was coming up. We all thought broadcasting. Some people said, like, on the announcement of a new team, we're like, no, it has to be bigger than that. Then CBS came out, and then concurrently the San Diego team got launched at the exact same time, had their press release, so that was really good timing because everyone who's looking and sees this deal come out also sees that there's a new San Diego team coming out. But then that's really it. There's no news about coaches, stadium, players, merchandise, anything really. But it's awesome that San Diego does have one. It is confirmed. It's not just rumors anymore. The San Diego Breakers fan page, I think on Twitter and Facebook, actually rebranded as San Diego Legion fan page, which is awesome. I saw on the Facebook that there are actually a lot of still currently active fans on there. So it's very good for, a season 2 years ago that only lasted for 1 year. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them play. I mean, I think their fans would be pretty exciting, especially now that the Chargers left too.
They had a pretty active fan base. In fact, there was I'm not sure, but there was a Breakers subreddit. Like straight up. Was? Yeah. There was a San Diego Breakers subreddit.
Wow.
Yeah. It was pretty active at one point, so.
Yeah. Well, probably faded off once, news stopped actually coming through for the most part, but that's what happens. But what about you, Victor?
Well, definitely really cool that we got finally the announcement of the team with the name finally coming out as a Legion. Funny that you mentioned, Aaron, that the sort of like the announcement of the team was ominous because it reminded me of the
demons. Demons.
Thank you, right? Thank you. The Legion of the Bible. That's exactly that reminded me when you mentioned ominous. I just started laughing. So yeah, we're Legion. Yeah, one of the few things in the Bible that actually interests me. So yeah, so that's what it reminded me of. But yeah, cool name nonetheless. I mean, if you get out the biblical reference, yeah, and like the French Legion, for example, just a group of guys going out and fighting, makes sense. And really, I think mostly the reason why the team was unveiled when the CBS deal came out was the fact that the CBS statement mentioned San Diego, so it makes sense to pull it out as well. And also, as soon as I put that out and the Twitter thing came out, you went to the MLR website and they had the San Diego Legion right there on the teams page on the tab. So
yeah, that was cool. Kind of funny. So I read the release and I went straight to the MLR page and I'm like, wait, there's a new thing there. And I click on it and it says San Diego Legion and I'm like, what? So I immediately went to Twitter and I typed in San Diego Legion or SD Legion. Yeah, it was like San Diego, and it was there, inactive. It had it followed one account and it had like 30 followers. It had like 20 followers. And then I went to the website and it was password access only. So by the end of the day, they were fully operational. So you can now go in to, submit emails to get on their mailing list for information and also for their info for just direct questions is open. So, I liked the color red they're using. It's different than this one. Okay. It's more like the one in the back.
That's right.
But so you're going to have like two, looks like red and black teams, which is, fine. I mean, there's 3 NFL teams that are red and blue, so it'd be what it'd be. Yeah.
Right.
So it was cool. And then that leads into another team, and this is where we talk expansion. Last week, there was a meeting in Houston about Major League Rugby. All the players for 2019 were there. From the little I was able to pull out, I'm pretty sure the Ontario Arrows are set. Like, bond payments for 2019 were discussed at the meeting, and they're full speed ahead. And then we know some people that were down there representing Rugby Club New York. So if you go into ARN, they launched it was yesterday, right? Yeah. So it was while I was driving home. They America's Rugby News, Brian Ray and those guys, they talked about the Ontario Arrows and where they're going. And yesterday, the Ontario Arrows Twitter and Facebook pages went live. You can find them at Ontario Arrows. Their combine is next month. And they're playing a bunch of MLR teams and friendlies before the season starts. So it looks like we're going to have a team right next to the wall.
Right up there. It's good to see it actually come through, because I know it was kind of announced before they might join MLR, but just professional league of some sort, which we all knew would obviously be MLR for the most part. But it looks like also that they're going to put a bit of a focus on Canadian players, which is obviously to be expected. But while they're not excluding anyone that's not from Canada or even Eastern Canada, it looks like kind of like what Utah is doing, since they're actually they're owned and run by like the state governing board for rugby.
Same CEO.
Same CEO, yeah.
Different money piles.
Different money piles. That's fine. But they still put a lot of a big emphasis on like the whole state of Utah, state of rugby. So it looks like the Ontario team is going to put a big emphasis on the whole development, because Canada recently has not really been doing too hot. So they're really in need of some high-quality Canadian eligible players. They just played Georgia. Georgia? Is that who they played?
Yeah, that's right. Georgia.
They got beat by a lot.
It was not good.
It was bad. But there was a really awesome try not by Canada, but by Georgia. That was really awesome to see. But yeah, I mean, similar things. There's not really much news for the most part. We don't really know who all the players are, but it looks like in one of the 15 articles that came out, I think one of them mentioned that it would be the players would still, for the most part, be mostly from the Blues, except for maybe one or two that actually signed somewhere else.
So the side they fielded against Glendale was majority Blues. I think there's like 2 dudes from the BC Bears. So I think they're trying to expand their reach per se, because the Blues, the provincial side of Rugby Ontario, are still going to exist. So the intent is, if there is, an MLR team in Vancouver, the intent is for both of them to raise their level. So there's going to be, just like the rest of the teams in MLR, there's going to be, significant holdovers, but there's going to be an attraction of talent from outside of their current pool. So, Victor, catch the pass.
Okay, will do. So in the September game against the Raptors, the Arrows had majority Blue players, 2 guys from the Atlantic Rock and 1 guy from the BC Bears specifically. But
that's what it was.
Exactly. So that's the technical breakdown, but I unfortunately do not remember names. But in any case, again, kudos to Rugby Ontario for getting this thing together, and hopefully, if everything goes well, they'll be in Major League Rugby by 2019. Something else too that they unveiled, guys, which we haven't mentioned already, is the fact that they now have a new logo, which it's the letter A with an arrow that makes the rest of the letter. So in the background it has the Toronto skyline, and apparently the arrow, which I was not aware of, it represents the Ontario Indigenous people, or First Nations as they call them. I was not aware of that. I believe also someone mentioned to me that there's a connection with a jet called the arrow, like the jet stream of it. I don't know exactly how it works, but yeah. Again, so what is leading me to believe is that the fact that they have the Toronto skyline on the Ontario Arrows logo is that, well, they may have the team play either in Toronto or the Greater Toronto Area, or the GTA as they call it.
Yeah. I think San Andreas.
That was weird.
I think
San Andreas. That was a game.
I was actually just thinking about this before, because I was reading another random article that came out, and it mentioned the Wolfpack, and I thought of them, but I didn't really think about them much recently. But if this team does come out and is in basically the same area as the Wolfpack, even though I'm not personally a big fan of League, I don't really like it that much, to be honest. I think the 2 teams really should be conscious of working together for the most part, even if they're not going to directly work together on every single thing or share stadiums or everything like that. But even though a lot of the fans who go to the League games are Union fans, as I think we have some Canadian people on Reddit say that, they should really be working together, because overall, especially if it's the same area, you don't want to just see each other's competition and take away the fans, and that's where your fan base is going to be, just the other team's current fans. They should be promoting rugby for the most part in all Toronto, and obviously make sure people know that there is a difference between the two without trying to confuse them too much. But they really should be working together, at least in some degree.
Okay, there's like 10 people who play League in Canada.
And so
they are co-hosting the World Cup in a couple of years. 5
in the U.S., and Victor is one of the 3 fans.
No, but like Dan said, Canada, USA are co-hosting the Rugby League World Cup in 2025, which I really do hope USA picks it up, because the World Cup right now in 2017, man, seriously, like we're getting crushed. So hopefully by them we'll be a little better. But going back, but going to Dan's point regarding the Wolfpack, ever since we created that the Earful Dirt Instagram page, which, by the way, Toronto Wolfpack follows us. Every post regarding Canada or the MLR has been liked by the Toronto Wolfpack page. So they're definitely following. Yeah, exactly. So they're definitely following the development of the league, and hopefully there's some cross-pollination between Rugby Ontario and the Toronto Wolfpack. Now, could it be possible for them to share Lamport Stadium? It could, but it's kind of hard because the thing is, since the Wolfpack has to cross the Atlantic to play their games against English and French opposition, because you got Toulouse Olympique that plays in Championship now. And eventually in 2019, if they do go to Super League and the Catalan Dragons remain in the team, which is also in France as well, it's going to be kind of hard because they like to have a bunch of away games and then later a bunch of home games. So it's going to be kind of hard to alternate both teams like that if you're going to have just like a straight home games like that, unless they have it on Sundays.
I think sharing stadiums at this juncture, I don't know if they want to do that, because it seems, based on every conversation I've had, they're trying to grow their fan base organic, whereas a lot of Toronto's tickets are giveaways. And, that's getting people into the stadium, but I think that had more to do with the fact that they're trying to be a TV product immediately, and the only place they had to play was Lamport Stadium. Like, that might have been the issue. And, however, I don't know if the seasons line up that well. So if the seasons don't line up at all, they could share the stadium, but then you run into Canadian football and what that does to you. But I think the Wolfpack and the Canadian football team, I forget what it is that plays there, because it's not Hamilton. That's the type.
You mean the Toronto Argonauts?
The Argonauts. So they're able to share. I wonder, the issue that comes in is the third tenant. And I forget if that is a plastic pitch or it's grass. If it's plastic, durability is not really the question, but if it's grass,
Lamport, it's artificial turf.
Oh, it's artificial. Then you're not. Yeah. Then I'm not really worried about the durability of the stadium at all, because it'll be fine. I mean,
well, there's no Canadian football team that plays there. I have it on Wikipedia. I don't know this off the top of my head. I'm not smart.
And it was empty, or is it a soccer stadium?
Wolfpack and Toronto FC2, who will play in the USL coming up next year.
So it's a soccer.
And it's the home of the National Rugby League team, I think.
Yeah.
Or one of the homes.
Mm-hmm. No, you are right, Dan. It is the home to Canadian RL.
Because there were questions, would they play down in Hamilton? I don't know where. Like, I think they're still exploring that one. But I don't think the seasons line up, so I don't really see a conflict.
Yeah. Do you think that they would also offer free tickets for fans? Do you think that's something that would happen?
For the size of that stadium, it might be a thing.
Yeah. It's like 9,600. Plus, there aren't too many stadiums aren't currently existing to really fit. I think Toronto, at least Ontario does, but I think they want to stick closer to Toronto and not stray off to Hamilton.
Yeah.
I think that's far. I don't even know, but
it's
a big place.
It's not that. Hamilton's not that far.
Yeah.
Those were the two sort of big things that came out. And then we had a massive discussion about pay and benefits. And I we had some new people come to the board, and that got really hardcore about what they wanted to see from Major League Rugby. And, I try to say I'm the only person that's allowed to be cynical on the podcast, because I've been really effing cynical about this. But I think there was, was brought up, and I had a discussion, with some people in Cardiff and Eel, Cardiff RCM, who is a man from Wales who lives in Londonish, but is probably the best scout of USA Rugby I've ever seen.
Which is bizarre.
He knows everybody, every college kid, every top, person in the EETDS, which is the developmental training squad and stuff.
Like really bizarre. Like I think every time he comments, I say, "How do you know this? I live in this country. I don't know these things about these players."
So, but they bring up, what if the salary cap is only for a 12-week season? Not for – so the contracts start January 1 and go through the end of the season, right?
Right.
So if they only go for the 12-week season, that means there's got to be different rates of pay. And I know for a fact that the SaberCats are getting paid right now. So there's preseason pay. Then the league starts paying everyone January 1. You have a preseason stipend, an off-season stipend, and a salary. So, yes, there's a salary cap, but they're getting paid more than that, which is sort of similar to how other leagues do it, because you get a stipend specifically for OTAs and minicamp in the NFL, and then you get a higher rate stipend during training camp, and then you have your salary, which is separate. And, I mean, the stipend for – well, if we can ever approach that, it's $1,000 a week in the NFL during training camp.
We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, so you get $20,000 if you make it through camp because it's 5 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's actually on that board, I think Grant actually said that the salary cap will only apply to matches played during the actual MLR season.
Yeah, I think I think he and I had a discussion, but I don't remember reading it from him. But still, if the salary cap only applies to the season prorated, that's $1 million. If anyone understands pro rata,
I know what the actual term prorated means, but doing math off the top of my head is not a strong suit.
Yeah, so 12 weeks is a quarter, right? So you multiply that by 4 for the year, and you get a $1 million number floating out there. And I did the math, and if it was the minimum salary for every single player is minimum wage in the state of Washington, which is $11, and then you come up with how many hours they're going to train plus games. That's going to be between 20 and 25 hours a week. So you do that, and I did it for 6 months, and the minimum salary was like $13,000. And if everyone got paid $13,000 over 6 months, it was closer to, because the training squad's supposed to be 35-ish. Then it was like fucking, pardon my French. Pardon my Spanish.
French.
Pardon my Spanish, actually, because I spoke with French people today. But then it was closer to like $700,000. And obviously there are full-time players that are getting paid enough to attract them from overseas. So what does that actually look like? It's definitely about more than single A baseball money. And I know one of the guys on the board was like, oh, that's not professional, blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, look at NBDL contracts. Look at USL, NASL, and PDL contracts. Look at single A hockey contracts. Look at double A hockey contracts. They're getting paid about double A, like low-end double A baseball money. So that's pretty good for a startup. Major League Lacrosse, the outdoor one, has been around for 16 years, and the majority of their players are still part-time. And it still exists. So
I think it'll be fine, really. I mean, it is the first season too, so you don't really look at this and as a player and say, I'm gonna make a ton of money my first year playing rugby. It's the very first season of this league. I think Brian Ray on the board too actually said that the better players would make about $20,000 to $30,000 during that the actual 12-game season. 12-game season, and then lower players would make like $5,000 to $10,000. Which you hear a player making $5,000, and you think like, oh, that's nothing. They're making no money at all. But then they have, for the most part, the rest of the year to also work at the same time.
So really, just like single A baseball guys.
Yeah. Or Canadian League.
Or Canadian, they can go home for 6 months and make a way, or they can work in the local area. And someone was like, well, nothing's stopping. The league isn't going to be able to stop people from giving a friend of the club giving out jobs. And I was like, I don't think the league is taking that. I think everyone understands what's going on, and the league in general is going to encourage making sure these guys have enough compensation to live. I don't think it's like, get these guys jobs if you're having to get these guys jobs, and how flexible are the jobs for the engineers and the accountants that are going to play. Like Kyle Sumsian is a project engineer, and he's married. So, but I saw him at practice. Like, he's at practice every night for the Strikers, and he's at lifting every morning for the Strikers. I mean, Sabercats. So, Connor Mills is an account manager, and he's there all the time. Like, so these guys have worked it into their schedules so that they can play professional rugby and make good money at the same time.
Or worst case scenario, the rest of the year you can work construction, you can mow lawns, you can be a bartender, you can, coach the youth rugby team and make a couple $100 or something like that. I don't know how much they'd actually pay, but they can fill out the rest of their time for the most part without huge issue. Obviously, they're not going to be, walking in here like millionaires, but the first year of a new league in a sport that's new to a lot of Americans.
And let me tell you guys, I guess it's a blessing in disguise that professional rugby is the fact that because players don't make that much money, they have to pick up a trade of some sort. They need to get a degree of some sort. It's not like, for example, and I'll give you a perfect example of this, Dominicans. Back home, there's a belief that if you make it in Major League Baseball,
I'm sorry. Always Dominican.
If you make it in Major League Baseball, and you're gonna make $1 million. It's like if you make it over there, it's your pot of gold. You just drop your studies. You just drop everything for the game. And once you get that signature, and they flow you to the States, you play there for years. You make your money. Once you get old, you collected all this money.
But you gave it all to your friend.
And that's it. And well, that and the family. But the fact is that you left the country with no skills. So once you get old or once you get injured, what do? Do you see what I mean? So again, it's a blessing in disguise that rugby players don't make as much money as they should, because those guys should definitely be making millions. But because they're not, they're forced to pick up a trade. So once they leave the game, they got a safety net.
Also internationally too, that's sort of a good thing. I guess a good thing relatively. Like soccer, these guys are making the most money in the world. You got like Cristiano Ronaldo making like $200 million.
Well, then they go to jail.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different story. We're talking about that tomorrow on our next podcast. But like even in other countries where it is very rugby heavy, it's not like $30,000 for a quarter of the season is that significantly lower than what they could make if they were, I don't want to say fringe player, but like maybe a younger player who hasn't gotten an opportunity, or someone who just doesn't get much playing time, but is from England and has that experience, or South Africa, or even New Zealand, especially in places where the salaries are lower. So that in that sense is a draw for talent just to get some extra opportunities and, knowing that they can get out here and get some exposure.
Yeah, and that's like a trait with professional rugby in general across the globe. So Saracens, Wasps, they have a director whose job is to work on the continuing education and control, commercialization of their athletes. So getting them set up for their future. And in the Mitre 10, for example, so Thursdays tend to be their continuing education day. They come in for treatment therapy early in the morning, and then they're working with people from the union on either going to school or going to trade school and picking up, something else in case they don't make it to Super Rugby. They got something else going on. I don't know what her name is, but Jamie George's mother runs the program at Saracens. So how do I know that? Long story. But Jamie George's mom runs the program for continuing education of players at Saracens. So that's a trait within rugby in general. I understand, you have Islanders trying to get off the island, once they make it in Super, they just go. And, if you can go to Toulon or another French club or Montpellier or something and go make 500-600K for 5 years, when you go back to Fiji or Tonga or Samoa, your generational wealth is set, But for the most part, if you're not going back to an area where cost of living is short, you got to do something else afterwards.
Yeah, there's also I think this happens a lot when the international tours come around, but there was an interview with one of the players for, I think, Samoa or Tonga, and he was just describing how much money they actually make being national players, and it just, I don't know what the actual conversion was because it's in whatever money they use in that country, but it was just next to nothing, and that's him supporting him and his family and building a house for his family too, and that's in a place that I would imagine for the most part is lower cost of living. So for chances like them to come into a league like this, we may view this as not making that much money, but if you are in a place where you're making next to nothing each day for being on the national team, this is a great chance, And that's only for the national team players.
You guys also heard. Yeah. Sorry, Dan, I didn't let you finish. You guys heard about the fact that okay, good. You guys heard about the news that the Samoan Rugby Union is bankrupt?
Oh yeah. Tracking all that. I guess people are saying, hey, the top guys are corrupt and whatnot, and that may be, and I'm pretty sure that's completely true.
That is 100%.
However, one thing that is an issue that I find an issue in rugby that if I try to draw parallels to, say, in American football, is when the cupcake comes to you, you pay them. And in this case, Samoa
Can you say that one again?
When the cupcake comes to you, you pay the cupcake to take the loss.
Oh, okay.
So, when a FCS team goes to Alabama, they get $1 million to lose by 80, which is what's going to happen to Samoa. They're going to lose by 80.
Until that one time they actually beat that team and they just wasted all that money just to look like idiots.
Well, yeah. So Michigan, App State. App State makes, $800,000 or whatever that outlandish number was, and they beat them in the big house. That happens.
That's just bad.
But so this is what so if tier 1 nations aren't going to travel to the islands so that the island nations, or here in general, so we had Ireland, cool. That was one. England needs to get their butt out here. We played the All Blacks. South Africa needs to come up here. France needs to come out here.
England's also notorious with like not leaving because they have to have a set number of games at Twickenham or something like that. So that's just like a weird thing.
That's right. They own the stadium. They're just trying to like make money because every England test is £10 million because they sell out every time. Yeah. Ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So no wonder they're paying their men's players £22,000 a fucking match.
Now you're going as a union. What was the last time they played a game in the north, where I guess rugby league is king? And I don't even know if they remember what was the last time they went up to the north.
Well, I mean, they're not the union isn't going to the north. Like they're just going to play at Twickenham forever now. They don't go anywhere else unless they're going on.
Sad.
But
that's really sad.
But in the north, rugby league is better, but you have teams in the championship up there, But my biggest thing is why can't the officials are corrupt. Well, the boys only make like $1,000 a year. You can't, in the social, you pick out the guy with your number and you walk up to him with a couple £1,000 in an envelope and say good game. And while you're exchanging jerseys,
just put it in the jersey, just hand it to him.
Yeah, done.
Open the jersey, falls down in a gutter somewhere.
But yeah, so while you're exchanging jerseys, you just handshake, give them the envelope of like £2,000 and call it good.
Yeah.
But so there's that.
Okay, guys, so let's move on.
You got some player signings now, right?
Yeah, so
they're still happening.
Player signings. This is a nice one. Jeremy Lenertz is becoming Seawolf in 2017. He was a college All-American selectee for the match against Oxford. In 2016, he was a collegiate All-American honorable mention with Central Washington on a team that went to the Varsity Cup semifinals. Previous to that, he was also a member of the now-defunct SF Rush. Before coming to the United States, he was a member of Racing Club Narbonne Méditerranée, U23 Academy side, and was called up several times during that period to the senior side in Pro D2 play. He represented Belgium Rugby for 3 consecutive years as a U17, U18, and U19 player before being recruited to Racing Club Narbonne. And I wonder, Victor... I beat you up about this earlier in the week, but I think that for me, if this guy was actually going to be on the Belgian national team, he would have been called up already. He's just another guy to go into the pool for the Eagles because I think next year he might be eligible. Not sure, but for his position, we're kind of packed. It's like there's a long line. So, but I would.
Good.
More talent's good. I'm good with that. But I would have thought that he would have already been selected at this juncture since he was, basically playing professionally in France. So.
Yeah, here, Brad. By the way, I just found out the pronunciation of his last name, Lenaerts, is pronounced.
Lenaerts.
That's not what you said.
Lenaerts. Yes, it's Dutch.
That.
Yeah,
it's a Dutch last name. So he's like
forget the E.
He's a Walloon, right? Or he's a Flem?
No, Flemish. All of them are the French.
Oh, Walloon. Okay, so he's a Flem.
Mm-hmm. He's a Flemish. Yeah, Flem. Exactly. You're from Flemish. Yeah, I deal with Belgian tourists all the time, so those are things you need to know because if you get them wrong, they get offended.
Yeah, of course.
And now
you cannot call a Flemish one.
And now to Dan.
And now we have someone else who, at least his name might be Dutch. I'm not really sure. It looks like it is.
It is.
Nola Gold signed Derek Van Klein He is most recently coming from Metropolis, and he is a loose head prop, but he can also play hooker or tight head prop as well. He's a D2 college All-American for the Minnesota Duluth. He is a pretty big guy as well. I think was he the one? Yeah, he was the one that actually posted where he was in the snow in his backyard in Minnesota like last week.
Yeah.
So that was really awesome. I'm sure he's happy to actually be, leaving that and going down to NOLA, which is a bit warmer than Metropolis area. He previously played with James Bay in the BC Premier League and also with the Ohio Aviators. So another pro signing. So it's good to see the pro talent isn't just disappearing. They're coming back and they're, staying professionally. He also competed for a spot with the NRFL, whatever's happening with them. So that's kind of interesting up there. He also actually, in Aaron's, I guess in your interview, Aaron, with Nate Osborne, Nate mentioned that there would be like 3 more players coming from Metropolis. Not that he's specifically trying to poach them, but
he said that there were going to be, I thought it was, so he said 3 more, and I know Derek Van Klein was sort of announced earlier. Yeah. So I don't know if he was
2 or 3, maybe.
I don't know if he was in that 3, but this was the official announcement of NOLA, and so let's just say plus or minus 2.5.
Half a person.
And then he said 3 or 4 more would be signing across Major League Rugby. So I mean,
good for MLR, but not so good for Metropolis when they're losing.
Well, I mean,
7 players.
I think Metropolis is looking at it a bit differently than some others would. That they're saying, hey, we're a club that developed players for this league, and if you want to make it and you're not there yet, but you're athletic and you've played a little bit of rugby, you can move to Minneapolis and train here and play for a couple of years and see what you got.
7's still a lot, though. Or 7 or 8's still a lot. If it was like 2 or 3, that's awesome. It's great exposure. And then like 7 or 8, that's pretty much your entire starting side for the most part.
Yeah, it's half their first 15 or
I can do math. I said before I can't really do math, so I should be forgiven.
Well, you should be able to do math a little bit better.
I'm on the spot. It's too much. All these numbers in my head. We got another actually pretty exciting signing that Victor really wanted to talk about, so much so that he said, guys, I want to talk about it.
That's right. So the signing that in question, guys, is Mr. Patrick or Patty Ryan, Eagle number 514, tie head prop. He has signed with Austin Elite Rugby. Now, you may know Patty because he came out of the Can-Am series that we had with Canada when we finally got that America's One spot for the 2019 World Cup. He is actually born in Chicago, Illinois, but raised in Cork, Munster, Ireland. He also has a brother named Dave Ryan that I believe he plays for Agen in the top 14, in the top 14 in France. Ryan, by the way, was playing most recently with the Newcastle Falcons out of the English Premiership or the Aviva Premiership, but is now with Highfield Rugby Football Club.
Most recently with Bath.
Oh, excuse me, with Bath, now Highfield Rugby Football Club. Thank you for catching that one, Aaron. Now, it is my hope that we get more guys like him, as in leaving their getting out of Europe and coming to North America to play a little bit. So it worked out the best that we got one of our European guys coming back home. Then also with Austin Elite, we got Mr. Robert Drummond, a longtime Hunt, by the way, member of the 2017 Hunts National Championship side, and a product out of UT, University of Texas Rugby Club. When he was 18, by the way, he got had a good showing for the USA U20s camp, by the way, and then he was picked up by the Hunts. Interesting fact, by the way, he is the owner of a bar in Austin 6th Street called Greenlight Social. In case you're in town, please bring some business to the man. 34 years old. He is 6 feet 3 inches, or about 1.9 meters, 275 pounds, or 124 kgs. Good sized guy. Again, 34. A friend of mine likes to joke that props are like wine. The older they get, the better they are. So there we go, 34-year-old guy. And finally, also, to wrap it up, another gentleman that got signed this week was Mr. Miles McQuong. He got signed not with Austin Elite, but with New Orleans Gold Rugby. He is a lock, by the way. He's coming from Fairfield, Connecticut. Definitely a native. He is the captain for the Fairfield Yankees, which is a Division III side that won the National Club Championship in 2016, and the Empire G1 in 2017 as a Division II side now, by the way. And McQuong also plays sevens for Northeast Academy and Stars Rugby Sevens. Nice to see guys, obviously, from the East Coast going down to Southeast to play. 24 years old, is 6 feet 6 inches, or 1.98 meters, about 2 meters. Not sure of his weight, so I will not be able to tell you that one. But those are the signings for the week, everyone.
I thought that was a pretty interesting signing because Fairfield's a D2. They're kind of in an interesting because they just got promoted to D2 recently, but they're a D2 club and they're sending people to a pro franchise. So that's really great to hear. I think for the most part, unless I might be mistaken, I just happen to know Fairfield's situation more because they're more local to me. But they were D3. I think that was just because they merged Fairfield and Connecticut Yankees and then became D2. Right. And they had like 50 guys on their squad. And I think they're staying in D2, but they're still like a pretty deep squad. And they bring a lot of people out to the games, even those who don't even play. So, good signing. He's a young guy.
Mm-hmm. As far as when it comes to talent and, we say, hey, this guy's D2, this guy's D1, there is athletic talent in the current amateur system. You can look at some of the guys that I'm sure on the first side at NYRC and go, hey, that guy could fit somewhere else, right? And we had a guy at Fort Bliss who was called up to All Army Sevens this last summer, and he broke his foot playing in a sevens rugby match. But that just says, hey, there's pieces out there that, can play at the highest level. Yeah. It's just, you got to find them.
Yeah. That's the other thing too. In many cases, people may be very talented and much more than a lot of people on the D2 squad, but for one reason or another, they want to stay with that club. Maybe they started with them, or what may have happened in Miles, was that his name? His case, he may be from Fairfield or maybe went to Fairfield University and may have just gone directly to the squad. He's still young too. I know people from New York that were offered, at least one person that was offered a contract to play for pro. He's I think a depth player, but then he would have had to move to like Ohio, so that wouldn't have worked out. But the talent's definitely there, but for one reason or another, a lot of times people just want to stay with that club. Could be closer. They could just have made great friends, and since it is social, you're not really looking to, make lots of money doing this, or any money doing it because it's club. So you're doing it because it's for the most part social, and you like the club.
It's like how much are you giving me to leave a really good situation?
Yeah. And
in that respect, somebody's got I'm not going to go be a bench player over there when I have a good job here.
Yeah.
I'm going to make way less to go do this thing. No thanks.
And you made great friends. So that's usually one of the biggest reasons people play rugby.
Whereas right now, what we're seeing with MLR is I'm pretty sure guys are getting job placement. The high level guys. accountants and whatnot when they're moving. Like the networks of these owners is immense. Just like, people talk about the network of Old Blue because they recruit players, not really with cash, but with job placement, and they can find them good jobs. So, and rugby, a friend of mine once explained to me, like, he played rugby for the business connections because he started playing rugby at his graduate school. Like his grad school had a senior men's club. So he started playing rugby because to get more connection to network better. Whereas like I started playing rugby, in a frontier town and then on an army team, you're not really networking there.
You're networking to a degree, but yeah.
Yeah. And now, but that has led to me to start networking outside of that sphere, but still within rugby, which is, how we're together, right? We network. Yeah.
There's a surprisingly high amount of people in the U.S. who have played rugby and go on to be successful businessmen that you would or businesswomen too. And you just have no idea until like they just happen to bring up memories from when they're in their 20s and they're just playing all the time. And you're like, wow, this guy in this suit that I'm talking to basically headbutt people all the time, So it is awesome.
All right. Moving on to views, news, and abuse. This was mentioned in an American Rugby News article that came out today. They spoke with Mark Winokur, who is one of the people I saw in a breakfast photo last week in Houston. And Mark Winokur is the team manager of the Ontario Blues as well as the Ontario Arrows. And so they're quoted as playing this future New York team. So in the ARN article, it talks about Rugby Club New York. And it talks about they hired a rugby development officer. I'm going to butcher his name, so I'm not even going to say it. Dan, I think you have it close to your tongue. I'm not sure. He is an American of Indian descent. He worked with USAR, and then he also worked with Rugby India. And in fact, I think they pulled him out of the deep throes of rugby work in India to be a development officer with Rugby Club New York. I think it's Nitesh something.
I didn't write down his name, so I don't remember it. But he was on that rugby wrap-up the other day, which was there wasn't really that much information on there, but it was still great to see because Matt McCarthy is pretty well connected within the New York scene. Talks to a lot of people. He loves to talk. So he asked him, he's like, will it be played at Gaelic Park? Their exhibition match is coming up. And then the guy responds, no comment. But I think Matt asked him that question on purpose because he might know that they are going to have some exhibition matches up there.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting for both Victor and myself to get some at least exhibition matches coming up, because we've kind of knew about this club for a while, especially because James Kennedy was actually on Rugby Wrap Up and had interest in actually bringing over the Pro 4 or Pro 12 at the time franchise to New York, but it just didn't work out logistically. So then he just sort of switched gears to a new league, which we think was actually in the American Rugby News article. They mentioned this Northeast League that would have been, I think, Chicago, Columbus, Boston, Toronto, and New York that played together. But it looks like now they're going to start and just go towards MLR instead. So he kind of like laid a couple hints and, kind of got everyone really excited. And then we found the website page somehow, probably just searching New York and Rugby Club. I mean, there's not that many words on the website.
That was pretty. We found that a while ago, but it was like, what?
Someone, I don't even know who found it or if any of us had anything to do with it, but that's the beauty of the internet, and that's the beauty of talking about things on the internet. Someone else just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. So at this juncture, I don't understand to an extent how this team is going to operate, because it's not going to operate as an MLR team. But I've checked through the Empire Governing Union's minutes, and there is no like new team in the last 8 months to request membership as an amateur club in the Empire Geographical Union. So, and I looked through the USAR teams in New York, and there is no Rugby Club New York. So I sort of wonder how they're going to play, because they're either the Ontario Arrows are a sanctioned team by Rugby Canada, and it's like in all the funny insurance stuff comes in. So what do you guys got? You're the locals. You've seen what's up.
I mean, I
now what I'm thinking is
Victor.
Well, now what I'm thinking is that I'm not hearing, no worries. Now what I'm thinking is that that might be on purpose, the fact that they're not in the Empire GU website or the USAR website, I guess, to keep the things on the wraps, or maybe once the team is officially announced, before is they're going to throw their application to put the team on their website. Now, but going back to what we're mentioning about this gentleman that's with Mr. James Kennedy, he's Nishan Nerejet. Again, Nishan Nerejet, I believe it's pronounced. My Hindi is not the best, but I think I can get that name correctly.
That's one way to butcher
it.
Yeah,
go ahead, Aaron. Hey, I dude.
I said I thought his name was like Nitesh. So, yeah.
No, well, I see it as Nishant, but it could be. But in any case, now with this guy, and since he used to be part of the Indian Rugby Football Union, hopefully we can get some rugby Indian guys playing in New York. That would be really cool. I would really like to see some South Asian players coming down and playing over here on this side of the Atlantic. That would be really cool.
Or Sri Lanka,
yeah,
too.
Exactly.
I think rugby's bigger in Sri Lanka.
Oh, you got Sri Lanka, too. Yeah.
I think it's bigger.
Dude, I saw a video of the Sri Lankan team, and those guys are big. Yeah, seriously. Like, those guys were really good. I watched the Indians and the Sri Lankans. I mean, if they can get along, of course.
I watched Bahubali 1 and 2. Man, there's some big Indian athletes out there.
Was it that Bollywood movie where it's like basically like the stereotypical rugby where people get into the rock and just like kick each other and they pin them down and punch them?
Bahubali is like this like story where like war and whatnot, and it was like crazy. I don't know, but all I know is like there's like a shit ton of 6'4", massive strapped, Indian guys in this movie, and I'm like, where'd all these guys come from? Like, put them on a rugby team. Like,
seriously, I mean, you could have some really nice props. There's apparently, I don't know if you guys heard of the Indian town that produces bouncers, bodyguards, and yeah, like swear to God, yes, like they work in most of the clubs in town, and these are big, strong guys, and this is school where they go to learn their craft. Believe it or not. So if you could get a couple of those guys, I mean, they'll make a mean front row, in all honesty.
You got to ask Nishan if he actually went out there. He was in charge of rugby development for a region, I think. So my first place to go to would be the place of the bouncers that can just manhandle you.
Yeah. By the way, guys, so another thing to Gaelic Park, which we briefly mentioned, it is a park, obviously, located in the Bronx, specifically in the Riverdale area of the county, of the borough. Very famous for its big Irish residents. I mean, not as many as they used to. Mostly my guys, the Dominicans and the Puerto Ricans, have dropped them off because, Hispanics. But you still have
Irish people still up there.
And yeah, there's a couple of them that said, "Nah, this ain't Hispanic. They're not going to drive me off my line." That's how Irish people sound like.
Was that your night? That was a terrible Irish accent.
that was a terrible. That was a Dominican guy making an Irish accent. That was horrible.
That was bad.
I know. I'm so, my apologies, Irish people. Okay, again, you guys were really far. Okay, we're like in the South Atlantic. You're up in the North. Okay, Ireland, really far away. But yeah, also Gaelic Park famous for their GAA or athletic Gaelic Athletic Association teams that play hurling and
Gaelic hockey,
game,
Gaelic football.
Gaelic football. There we go.
It's your awesome sports.
Gaelic football, hurling. We don't call it hockey. It's called hurling, sir. Okay, don't confuse it with field hockey. It's completely different.
Well, it's men with sticks on grass playing grass hockey. So yeah, it's a girls' sport.
Hurling.
Yeah, well, they have a name. It's called hurling.
Hold on. You say hurling was a girls' sport? Have you seen hurling? Have you ever watched it before?
Field hockey is a girls' sport, but not hurling.
You gotta talk smack. You gotta back it up.
Yeah, that confuse them.
You gotta seriously watch that.
I've seen the stick, I've seen the ball, and I'll play rugby. Good sir. I do not want to get hit with that.
Oh yeah. No, but Gaelic Park is Victor's saying is, for anyone not in the New York area, very well known amongst the Irish community. It's up by 240th Street, I think, which actually is right by the Columbia soccer field, I think. I never go up there, so I'm not familiar with the area at all. But that is where Old Blue plays. There's really limited space to begin with, so it is far up there, but you can take the one all the way up. I think it's like one of the last stops, or I think that's where all the trains hang out. So for exhibition matches, at least, does definitely make sense to get some sort of crowd out there that may be a bit more familiar with the sport, just to get a couple games going, and then anyone who's willing to go up there. And then, I've heard rumors of a couple different places in New York that James wants to build a stadium. I don't know how feasible it is. I don't really understand construction, zoning, and everything like that, especially in New York. But he does own a construction company, so I guess that is sort of the first good step to go to if you want to build a stadium. It's a specialty, yeah. Real estate and construction. That's kind of a good thing to do when you're trying to find a stadium in New York. So.
And by the way, the Columbia Field is on 218, and Gaelic is on 240th. So you can see it's really far away. From 218 to 240.
Oh, well.
22.
Couple miles.
22 blocks.
Couple miles. It's a
couple exactly.
It's a good
far.
It's a good break. It's a warm up. It's a warm up. It's a warm up.
Yeah, but you have to understand. You have to go also over a bridge from Manhattan to the Bronx. That's another thing too. If you're gonna be jogging, so you might as well just take that subway. It's gonna be a lot faster.
The other thing that we're not really, or we haven't really mentioned, or I haven't even really seen too much of yet, but is Steve Lewis involved with this club at all, or?
Well, Steve Lewis was at that meeting, and I know Victor had spoken with him at a game.
That's right.
Said, hey, hit me up in a couple months and tell Castro he's crazy.
Right.
Pretty much that. That's exactly right. I still have his business card right here in front of me, actually.
Yeah. I mean, Steve and James know each other pretty well.
I guess we'll wait.
So that's an obvious case that Steve and James
know
each other.
And I tell you, and he goes to every All Blue game.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, like every time I go, the Steve Lewis is right there.
If you want to team up with someone to, I'm assuming, pick out the actual players for your team, I'd say Steve Lewis is pretty good. He was also pretty much the guy who did that for pro rugby a couple of years ago, or at least pick people to pick the players. And that was a really tough job to do in the U.S. to pick out for 5 different clubs. So he did an amazing job.
Yeah, director of rugby.
So if you can do that and just focus on one club.
He just focuses on one.
Yeah.
Put together a pretty good team. And he's a pretty good freaking coach, too.
That's true.
So
yeah, he coaches sevens. I heard.
But so moving on. Super Rugby in Los Angeles. So we had this rumor hit our boards a couple months ago, and then it hit us again. Well, I have a birdie. This is a real source, confirmed, like it's real. And the USAR will announce it tomorrow. There is a Super Rugby and America's Rugby Championship doubleheader in our internal communications. Victor has called it an exhibition preseason type match, and I really hope on my end that they just did a little finagling of the schedule and give I think we think it's the Stormers and somebody else. Just gave them a bunch of buys, which makes sense because the Stormers have been connected to the San Diego Legion. So my hope is that we're not paying to go watch a preseason match between the Stormers and their to-be-named opponent.
Hopefully the Blues. I mean the Bulls.
Oh, that would be great. We get to see Mitchell again. You know,
that'd
Mitchell
be great.
Just we better, beat Argentina 15 for the first time and then just rub that in Mitchell's face.
Yeah. But this is also just awesome that if it is a doubleheader between an ARC match and Super Rugby, I don't know exactly how many fans there are out there for rugby, but knowing that there is a Super Rugby team coming out gives you a little bit extra incentive to actually go and watch the USA Eagles play. And then maybe from watching that, you're like, oh, this team's, this actually team's pretty interesting, whoever they're playing against. And if it's ARC match, I'm assuming they're playing against a team that they will most likely beat, unless it's Argentina 15s, which they're pretty evenly matched. So,
well, I think
it could be good too.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but we played Argentina 15 first the first year, and then we played them last year.
We definitely played them last year.
So
I didn't watch it the first year.
I don't know, but if it's just flipping the schedule every year, then they would be first. I don't know.
But first also would be good.
We'll find out tomorrow.
Good match. Yeah. You do want a good match for the first one, even though it would be cool for fans to see the USA stomp on Brazil, even though we've lost to them before. But it would be cool because then people might think we're really good when we're not really.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different story. We'll hear the announcement tomorrow. That's actually, spoiler alert, that's actually what our tweet of the week is for this week. I was a bit lazy. And this is a good tweet, so I thought that maybe we should say it. So that's all we got for that part.
Victor, what do you think about this one?
We have two Victors for some reason.
That's weird. I don't know why.
That's strange. That's the strangest thing I've ever seen. So what do you think, man?
Ooh.
I mean, I hear you.
So you're asking me or are you asking
which
me
Victor
or
are we
guy?
asking?
Hey, they look the same. What happened?
Wow. Yeah.
I wonder
what happens when we have no producer.
I wonder if I can hang up on one of you. I'm gonna eject.
You know what? Do that, and I'll just come back.
No, the one you just talked on seems to work, so I'm gonna try this.
Okay.
Are you still there?
There we go.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
We have audio.
Cool.
That was fun.
Yeah.
So what do you think, man? About
the whole thing about the Super Rugby? Well,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
No, what do you think? We want to hear your opinion. Punditry.
Well,
Habla.
That sounds cool. Muy bien. So, well, yeah, definitely quite cool that we're going to get in this Super Rugby match alongside Argentina 15, which, by the way, I did caught the end of your question. Yes, we did play Argentina 15 first in 2016. So if we're going to get them again, that's kind of cool, especially if we're going to have the Stormers again, hopefully the Bulls. Yeah, quite fun. The fact that we're going to get a match. California has a large population of South Africans, so they'll definitely come down from wherever they are to watch a game. So yeah, all cool things overall.
And then the last sort of abuse we got for the week before we hit the tweet and the questions, because we seem to have to just to let you guys get out of here. Hey Victor, mute your mic. It's pulling feedback.
Give me a second then. So I'll hang up and I'll come back on my computer because the thing is my thing just went off.
All right.
So I'll be right back.
All right. Now Victor's gone, so we can really have fun.
All right. Just us two. So, okay, guys. Getting back to that, technical difficulties being what they are. So the SaberCats made their first appearance in the world. There was a scrimmage against the Austin Blacks. This favored the Cats 46-31. The setup was very similar to All Blacks counties, warm-up and structure. It was played over 4 20-minute quarters. I got the nickel price match recap from our friend in Houston. Overall, the Cats had a bunch of defensive lapses over 2 of those periods, which led to 5 tries scored. And during those 2 periods, that was the only time the Blacks threatened at all. Then, the SaberCats are attacking very well within their structured offense and didn't have much of a problem imposing their will. Hill and Thaddeus Hill Jr. and Willie Perry Jackson are learning how to hang back and receive the ball well, which will eventually create many athletic mismatches early that Connor Mills and Sam Windsor will be able to exploit. For me, without knowing any of that stuff I just talked about, and I saw the score line and I said, hey, that's actually not bad because they're playing a D1 club that has been in, national championship pathway contention for many, many years and have good coaching. So, you never know how you're going to fight until someone hits you in the mouth.
Yeah. And this is their first ever time of really having a match against another opponent, because they've obviously done some sort of scrimmages in practice for the most part, but I'm assuming that most of that was very much, just running up the field and then running back down the field, and it was kind of controlled. So 46-31 is, even if I just saw the score, like I really personally wasn't going to take anything unless they got destroyed like 70-3. Like that was the only time I would have actually, had my own doubts. But it's the first time that they're together. If this whole summary is true and they had some defensive matches that were mismatches, it was defensive lapses. That makes sense. It's a team that hasn't really gotten used to each other on defense. So that's, it's all communication and continuity, and that comes a lot with practicing together, doing more than just lifting bags of sand and running up hills, which is mostly obviously the fitness part. But, this is really Fitzpatrick and the coaches really just wanted to get them out there. They wanted to see what they had. They wanted to mix players in and out. So they didn't just put their starters in for the entire game. It's lots of, subs coming in and out just so they can have an idea of, all the players, not just the starters of how good they are. So that's really all these scrimmages are. And they're coming to play Dallas, I think, next week.
Was it Dallas comes down?
Yeah, Dallas comes down to
week,
them.
And then Houston travels to Blacks the week after that, and then the Reds the week after that, something like that.
And shout out to, I think, NTX Rugger was his name on Reddit. He actually plays for the Dallas team that's coming down. So I'm sure he wanted to hear some of the recap of that. But anyway, so since Victor obviously can't jump in and give his own 2 cents, figure we should move over to the tweet of the week. Now, the tweet of the week usually contains, obviously goes with, MLR theme, contains some sort of hashtag and also emoji. However, as I said earlier, I was lazy and I put more focus on other things than the tweet of the week. So coming directly from the USA Rugby Twitter account on Sunday, the caption was "Big announcement coming Tuesday, hashtag ARC, hashtag Super Rugby." And this was all with a pretty nice image of, I think, StubHub Center.
Yes, that is StubHub Center.
And StubHub is where the Chargers used to play. Or no, that's where they currently play.
That's where they currently play, and it is the home of the Los Angeles Galaxy. And the StubHub Center is owned by Anschutz Entertainment Group. So I believe AEG will be promoting the first match. And we're going to have to get the captain, Dan Lyle, back on for our line-out series to talk about Super Rugby rather than Premiership Rugby.
Yeah, that would be really awesome because I will personally say this myself that I think about 3 or 4 months ago, I think I tweeted at Dan saying like, hey, it'd be awesome. AEG Rugby or AEG owns StubHub Center. Why don't you get like New Zealand team or some other Super Rugby team and they can play out there, just mimicking the Premiership match. So, obviously they listened to me. They didn't think of it before. I put the idea in their head. So,
Except
I'll be expecting
these are like South African teams going, 12 hours across the globe instead of, like 7 hours for a New Zealand team.
Yeah, well, they didn't want to just copy it exactly, but I will be expecting some royalty checks coming in soon, or at least some nice stuff. But actually, another thing too on the picture, it's not just a tweet saying big announcement, but there's a nice image of the StubHub Center with this big thing that says International Rugby Saturday. So they're obviously looking to make it like a big festival kind of thing.
AEG Rugby polos for Dan Brown.
Something.
All right. So moving on, we're going to go to questions from Bob. Our first question is one we skipped last week, and I think we'll have an answer for him tomorrow. But from Cardiff RCM, have the venues for the 3 ARC home games been announced yet? Does anybody else think they should be held at 3 most appropriate MLR grounds?
I think that's a yes. I mean, I don't want to talk too much about this and waste time because we will find out tomorrow at least one place, but most likely all. I did hear before, or we heard, I think someone mentioned on the Reddit that all 3 would be in California, which does make sense if they're trying to make it a big deal in California. I think Houston's a good spot too, just because of the Sabercats. They seem to be pretty in tune with their local community too, and a lot of people posting on Facebook all the time asking where they can buy merchandise. So at least in the future, I think it makes a lot of sense to have ARC matches at least, in the same city as another MLR team so that they can do their own promotion because it does benefit them too. So kind of have, hit it from 2 different entities.
Yeah, I think I explored this question a bit last week. So there was an article in the Rugby Republic that covered Old Mission Bay Athletic Club rugby, and at the bottom, the coach talked about in negotiations with USAR to bring a ARC match to their field, and they would bring in bleachers and use that as the basis of their commercial plan. After already saying they looked at the MLR model and said it didn't work for them. So they don't have a commercial plan, and they figured that starting a brand of on-back rugby tied to MLR wasn't going to be a thing. So I don't know. I don't know. And, I spent a week up in San Jose, and I think Avaya Stadium is a lovely ground to host rugby. Except that I think the hosts may not like what their field will look.
It got ripped up pretty badly after sevens. I can just imagine like some scrums on that grass. That it's gonna go straight to dirt.
Yeah. So, and our next question's from Downey Keene. Will the games be available for global viewing?
We hope so. There's going to be a streaming option available, which maybe something like Flow Rugby or some other company that wants to stream it. So I don't know exactly how streams like that work internationally, but I would hope that at least you could stream it online through that.
I know Flow for last weekend was streaming in South America.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Anything specific, or they were just streaming stuff?
The Argentina match was streamed in South America, I think.
Oh, really?
I need to look at the announcement, but they streamed like 3 different matches. They had the broadcast rights to stream down there. So,
yeah. But we'll have to wait and see. But I think it would have to be a streaming option, or if we're lucky, YouTube might have some games. I don't know how that worked with with Pro, if those were official or if someone just somehow got the stream and then
I think someone ripped those.
Which, I'm fine with that, but it might not be possible if they go through CBS Sports and everything like that. So we'll see what happens with that.
Right, and Bob has 2 questions. Maybe Victor's coming back in. I don't know. I invited him again. When can I buy kit? Well, Utah. You said you laid claim to me on Twitter. That's why I'm wearing it today. But basically, if you send us kit, we'll be more than happy to rock it. This is a lovely piece of kit. So, I don't know when you can buy Utah kit. They have not posted that. I know you can buy Seawolves kit, and I know you can buy Austin kit, and I know you can buy Glendale kit. So.
Yeah. Glendale one does, I have to say, it is a very big improvement on the old Glendale Raptors. Not the Merlins, but when they were the Raptors last time. No offense, but I think that those were really kind of disgusting uniforms.
They were weak.
Yeah. It looked kind of weird. I don't know. It made me sick just looking at them. I'm sorry.
Then the second question is, where's the best place to watch a match?
I guess midfield would be the best place to watch a match. I've only been to 2 professional settings, one being the US Ireland in Red Bull Arena and the other in Philly, both of which are, fit over 18,000 people. So I'm not sure if it's the same for like a smaller match that you typically see in like England, but midfield, I don't really know. I've only been, like I said, 2, and everything else is just bleachers with 10 people in it. So.
Victor, where do you like watching a match?
Well, thus far, of course. Now, in terms of me being personally, thus far, it was really cool being in Red Bull Arena. I'll tell you that. I definitely had more fun in Red Bull Arena than when Dan and I went down to Talent Stadium personally.
But like physically in the stadium, where like in the tri zone, at the 5 meter, at midfield.
Midfield, definitely. So that way you get a view of one side of the field and then the other, because anyways, when second half comes, the teams have to switch sides anyway. So it makes more sense to have it on midfield.
For me, I like being definitely between the 22s. If I can't get midfield, I want to be smack dab between midfield and the 22-meter line. And I think about probably 15 rows up, depending on where the seats start. Just high enough so your angle's good, but not so far away where, you have to bring the binoculars.
I will say, though, that at least from watching on TV and being at the game in Philly, rugby matches are a lot more personal or personable than like an NFL match or an NFL game. Like you can even be front row and you still have 20 feet in between you and where the players are. Meanwhile, in Philly, we were sitting 5 rows behind Chris Wiles. We actually went up and talked to him for a second. So that was actually really awesome. And that seems to be pretty common too. And especially in Philly, the game was pretty quiet for the most part because there weren't too many fans. So you could just hear all the calls and all the players yelling at each other on the field. So that was actually really cool because it was kind of an eerie feeling because you could tell it was professional. It was put on very professionally, but at the same time, you could hear everything as if it was like a club rugby match. So that was really cool too.
Yeah, the angles that I've noticed other than South African rugby grounds, other than those places, the angles at which stadiums are constructed are a lot steeper and give you this much more intimate feel when it comes to how you're able to watch a game, whereas in some NFL and college football stadiums, you either have to be really close to feel it, and if you're far away, you might as well have just stayed home.
Yeah.
So I think that's good. Yeah, that gets us to, pardon me, our final thoughts. Do you got anything, Dan?
No. Was I supposed to?
I don't know. Like, final thoughts is unscripted. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I'm just really happy for this New York team. I don't care if it takes me a while to get there, but I really want it to come together. I want to do well. That's it, pretty much, I guess. Lots of good matches coming up.
You know, for me, I'm like happy after all these people said, "Hey, you need to have this SoCal team, or you need to have a New York team." Well, guess what? Guess what, guys? Children. All right. Guess what? Your wishes have been answered. There's a California team. There's going to be an East Coast team. We're going to cover possibly, more in the future, like definitely more in the future, but possibly even more than that. So that's awesome. But it was nice to have that confirmation this last week. Whereas a little bit still innuendo, but for the most part, you can feel it coming. And Victor, catch the kick.
Well, definitely, I caught it. So real quick, guys, a shout out to a new person that's following us on Instagram, a guy named Marty Francis. He plays for GC Foster College down in, guess where? Spanish Town, Jamaica.
Nice.
So we got Jamaicans listening to us now. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
So, hopefully he listens to this. I told him I was going to give him a bit of a shout out. He is expecting, fingers crossed, to playing with the Jamaica Crocs with the national team sometime next year.
That's nice.
I don't know which position he plays, but hopefully he plays for the Crocs. So that's one thing. So again, shout outs to Francis. Second thing is for the viewer, well, for the listeners really. The guys and I were having a conversation over email regarding a question I brought up. If it's possible in the near future that Major League Rugby may have a team down in Mexico, because everyone always talks about a team in USA and Canada, which I understand because most major cities in Canada are in the south, touching almost the 49 parallel, and you also have the fact that Canada also speaks English, but no one talks about poor old Mexico with their Spanish and the like. So I would just brought up the hypothetical that in a couple of years, if it's possible to have a team in a close enough to the border. So I brought up the examples of having a team either in Tijuana, Baja California, or one team in Monterrey, Nuevo León, which are quite close.
I support Monterrey. Tijuana.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
I do.
No.
Yeah, I mean, after what you told me, yeah, definitely. But I definitely support Monterrey because that's where the money is in the north of Mexico anyway. Because the problem is having a team in Mexico City. The thing is, Mexico City is so far away from the border. It's sort of annoying. But I mean, then again, just looking towards the Wolfpack, they have to cross the ocean just to go to England to play. So again, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And plus the fact that if they're paying dollars and the Mexican peso is lower than a dollar anyway, if you make the conversion, you're really saving yourself money anyway. So, and also the fact that if you were talking about soccer, you got the North American Soccer League, which has a team down in Puerto Rico. Then again, PR is a U.S. territory, so that's probably why they don't pay as much for travel. But again, down to the Caribbean to go all the way to New York, that's if from here to New York City to Santo Domingo is 4 hours. I assume for San Juan up there has to be at least 4:30, like 4 hours 30 minutes.
Well, based on like my survey, like I just learned to answer this question so we can get out of here. I learned a ton of stuff in about an hour about Mexican rugby today that I'm actually glad. A lot of age grade players in the current system, I already knew this, but and I was telling Victor about this, come from the U.S. Like you have a lot of Mexican American descent kids from the El Paso and New Mexico areas joining, the Mexican national team because they have dual citizenship and, they're just going, they're identified by the Mexican high performance system and didn't get identified by the Eagles high performance system. So they took the shot. And so they were one of the starting props on the U20 team this year, I think it was, that played in the
RAN, right?
Yeah, in the RAN.
In Miami.
Was from El Paso. So, but I looked at Mexico. One of the biggest things, like we've talked about, is commercial viability and money behind teams. And Victor's talked about commercial viability and financing in Monterrey. So that's a big thing that's important. And you also look at the rugby fan base. The densest area of rugby is in Distrito Federal, which is Mexico City, the Mexico City area. So I think, you could have as many as 2 teams, just like in Canada. I think Canada, you could have more than 2 teams eventually, but I think for Mexico, with their total population of ruggers, first, I think the first place I think they're going is Mexico City. And, you can talk about some of the connections that the current Texas teams have to Mexico. And it makes it easy to see. Just not, in year 2, maybe year 5. And because I haven't heard anything concrete about it. So, take us out.
It would be cool to have Mexican guys, though.
Hey, I'm ready. Let's go.
Signing with the Utah Warriors.
There you go. Exactly.
All right.
I mean, dang it, you got some really good players in Mexico 15s and 7s that definitely make it in MLR.
So, all right, let's get out of here.
Yeah, guys. So, final thoughts, because we have to say the thing that we always say.
Let them play, man. Let them play.
Okay. Let me mention it again. So, guys, obviously, thank you for joining us on the Earful Dirt Fancast. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you're watching this. Of course, on youtube.com/EarfulDirt. Look us up as Earful Dirt Fancast. Like us on Facebook, Twitter, and as I mentioned before, Instagram. Add us to your podcast list on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Player FM. Obviously, you could also get us on SoundCloud. Again, leave us a review. We got 3 reviews, 2 from last month and 1 for 3 days ago. Keep those coming. Again, obviously shout outs, obviously, to the people that wrote those. Hopefully you're going to get some merch once we get it anytime soon. Also, and I don't think we have checked. We should check, guys. Voicemails, send us. Call us, of course.
I checked today. There wasn't anything. So.
Oh, there was another? Okay, good. Well, be the first one, obviously. And the number is 720-600-2679. Again, that's 1-720-600-2679. Again, leave us a voicemail. Keep in mind that we record this live starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. With that said, guys, good night. I guess we can play ourselves out.